Welcome to another journey into the quiet corners of history. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. Let the concerns of the modern world fade, just for a little while. Tonight, we're going to step away from our busy, bright, noisy age. We're going to travel back through the centuries, to a time when life moved at a different pace. A slower pace, a gentler pace, in some ways. We're going to spend a full day, in a place where time was marked not by the buzzing of phones or the chiming of digital alerts, but by the ringing of bells, where work was measured not in emails sent or tasks checked off a list, but in pages completed. Sometimes, just one page, one single page. After a full day's labor, we're going to visit a monastery, a place of prayer and work and silence. And within that monastery, we're going to enter the scriptorium, the writing room, where monks spent their days creating books, not printing them, not typing them, writing them by hand, letter by letter, word by word, line by line. This won't be a story of adventure. There will be no battles, no chases, no dramatic revelations. Instead, this is a story of routine, of repetition, of the quiet satisfaction that comes from work done carefully, patiently, with full attention. So settle in, get comfortable, maybe dim the lights, let your breathing slow, let your mind begin to wander backward, to the year 1267, to a monastery called St. Aelred's, somewhere in the English countryside. The monastery sits in a valley, rolling hills surrounded on three sides. To the east, there's a small river. You can just barely hear it if you listen carefully on a quiet day. The sound of water moving over stones. Constant, soothing. The monastery buildings are stone, grey stone, weathered by decades of rain and wind and sun. The church is at the center, its tower rising above the other structures. Around it, the other buildings are arranged in a square. The dormitory where the monks sleep, the refectory where they eat, the chapter house where they meet, the guest house for travelers, the workshops and storerooms, and of course, the library and scriptorium, the heart of the monastery's intellectual life. It's autumn, October perhaps. The leaves on the trees surrounding the monastery have turned. Golds and russets and deep crimsons. Some have already fallen, creating a carpet of colour on the ground. The air has that particular autumn quality. Crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth and something else. Something harder to name. The smell of the year turning, of the growing season ending, of winter approaching. The days are growing shorter. The sun rises later and sets earlier. The monks have noticed this, of course. It affects their schedule. The times of the prayer offices shift slightly with the seasons, always tied to the movements of the sun. Inside the monastery, preparations are being made for winter. Wood has been cut and stacked. Repairs have been made to roofs and shutters. The harvest from the monastery's fields and gardens has been brought in, sorted, stored. Grain in the granary, root vegetables in the cellars. Apples laid out carefully in the cool darkness so they'll last through the cold months. Herbs dried and bundled, hanging from the rafters of the storerooms. Everything has its place. Everything has its season. This is the rhythm of monastic Bishitesöde, a rhythm that's been going on here for how long? The monastery of St. Aelred's was founded in 1154. So it's been here for over a century now. Several generations of monks have lived here, prayed here, worked here, died here, and been buried in the small cemetery behind the church. And all that time, for over 100 years, monks have been working in the scriptorium, copying texts, preserving knowledge, creating beautiful books that will outlast them by centuries. Tonight, we're going to meet one of these scribes. We'll call him Brother Thomas. He's been at St. Aelred's for 12 years. He came here as a young man of 18. Now he's 30, the prime of his life. His eyes are still sharp. His hands are still steady. He's mastered his craft. He's one of the most skilled scribes in the community. And today, this ordinary autumn day in 1267, we're going to follow him. From the moment he wakes in the darkness before dawn, through the hours of careful work in the scriptorium, through prayers and meals and brief moments of rest, until he lies down to sleep again as the day ends. Darkness. Complete darkness. Brother Thomas lies in his narrow bed, his cell, his small private room, has no windows. Or rather, it has one small window, but it's shuttered against the October night. No light enters. The darkness is absolute. He's asleep, but not deeply. After 12 years of this life, his body has learned the rhythm. Even in sleep, some part of him is listening, waiting. And then, the bell begins to ring. Not a sudden clang. Not an alarm. Just a steady, measured tolling. Each strike clear and separate. The sound travels through the stone corridors of the monastery, through closed doors and shuttered windows, calling the monks to prayer. This is the bell for matins, the night office, the first of 8 prayer services that will structure this day. Brother Thomas stirs, his eyes open, though it makes no difference in the darkness. For a moment, just a brief moment, he lies still. The stone cell is cold. The air is cold. Outside his thin blanket, the October night waits. But the bell continues its steady calling, and so he rises. He sits up slowly. His feet find the floor. The stone is shockingly cold. Cold enough that he can feel it even through the calluses on his feet. He stands, a bit stiffly. 30 is not old, but 12 years of sitting on a hard stool, hunched over a writing desk, have left their mark. His back protests slightly as he straightens. He reaches out in the darkness. His hands know where everything is. To the left, about 2 feet. There's a hook on the wall. His habit hangs there. His fingers find the rough wool. He pulls it down and, still in the darkness, begins to dress. The habit is simple. A long tunic that falls to his ankles, made of undyed wool. Brown really, though you can't see the color in the darkness. It's worn soft by years of use. At the waist, a rope belt. On his feet, nothing yet. He'll put on his sandals before leaving the cell. The habit smells of wool, of him, of wood smoke from the monastery's fires, of the herbs that are sometimes used to help preserve stored clothing. Rosemary, perhaps. Lavender. He pulls it over his head. The wool settles around him. It's not warm exactly, but it's warmer than the air. And that's something. He finds his sandals by touch. Simple leather sandals. He slips his feet into them. The leather is cool, but not as shockingly cold as the stone. Now he opens his door. Outside in the corridor, there's the faintest light. Very faint. Somewhere. Perhaps at the end of the hallway. Someone has lit a small lamp. Just enough light to see by. Just enough to avoid walking into walls or stumbling. Other doors are opening. Brother Thomas can hear them. The soft creak of wood. The whisper of wool habits. The shuffle of sandaled feet on stone. The monks emerge from their cells like shadows. Silent shadows. No one speaks. The great silence began after Compline last night. The final prayer service of the previous day. It will continue until after prime this morning. For now, silence. Perfect silence. Except for the footsteps and the breathing and the occasional cough. Brother Thomas joins the silent procession. Perhaps 30 monks live at St. Aelred's. Some are very young. Novices, still learning the life. Some are very old. Men in their 60s or 70s, which is remarkably old for this time. Most are somewhere in between. All ages, all backgrounds, united in this shared routine. They move through the darkness together, down the corridor, through a doorway, into the cloister, the covered walkway that surrounds the central courtyard. The air here is even colder. The walkway is open to the courtyard on one side, and the October night air flows in freely. Brother Thomas can see the stars above the courtyard. Thousands of stars. More stars than most of us can imagine seeing, here in our modern world with our electric lights. The medieval night is truly dark, and when the sky is clear, when there are no clouds, the stars blaze. He recognizes some of the constellations, not because he's studied astronomy, though some monks do, but simply from seeing them so many times. Night after night, walking to matins in the darkness. The stars wheel overhead in their slow, eternal dance. The procession reaches the church. The door stands open. Inside, warmth. Not much warmth, but more than outside. The stone walls of the church hold a little heat from the previous day. And there are candles lit near the altar. Small flames. But their light seems bright after the darkness. The monks file into their places in the choir stalls. These are wooden seats that line both sides of the chancel. The area just in front of the altar. The seats are arranged in 2 rows, facing each other across a central aisle. There's a hierarchy to the seating. The abbot, the head of the monastery, has a special seat at the front. The prior, the second in command, sits near him. Then the other monks, arranged roughly by seniority and office. Brother Thomas has been here 12 years. That places him, let's see, perhaps a third of the way back. Not among the newest members, but not among the seniors either. He moves to his seat and stands before it. Around him, the other monks do the same. 30 men, standing in silence, waiting. The abbot enters last. He's an older man, perhaps 60. He walks with a slight limp, an old injury from before he entered religious life. But his voice is strong. He takes his place and begins. O Lord, open thou my lips. The monks respond, their voices blending into a single sound, and my mouth shall show forth thy praise. This is the traditional opening, the same words that have opened Matins for centuries, the same words that will open it for centuries more. The service continues. Psalms are chanted. There are 12 psalms in the night office, 12 long passages of poetry and prayer. The monks know most of them by heart, but some follow along in their psalters, their personal books of psalms. The chanting has a particular quality. It's not really singing. There's no melody. Not in the way we think of melody. Instead, it's a kind of heightened speech. The words are intoned on a single note, with slight rises and falls at the ends of phrases. The effect is hypnotic, soothing. Brother Thomas lets his voice join the others. He doesn't think about the words. He's said them too many times for that. Instead, they simply flow through him. His lips shape the Latin syllables. His breath carries the sounds. His mind drifts, not asleep, but not fully awake either. A kind of meditative state. The stone church amplifies the sound. The voices echo slightly. They blend and overlap. Individual voices become impossible to distinguish. There's just the chant, the endless, timeless chant. Dominus noster ters, quam admirabile, est nomen tuum in universa terra sats. O Lord, our Lord, how admirable is thy name in all the earth. Outside, the stars continue their slow wheel. The night continues its slow progression toward dawn. Inside the church, time seems to stop. Or perhaps it's always stopped here. Perhaps this moment, this chanting of psalms in the darkness, is eternal. Has always been happening. Will always be happening. Brother Thomas's mind wanders. He thinks about the book he's working on, the Psalter for the Merchant in London. He's been working on it for 3 months now. 3 months of careful copying. And it's coming along well. The pages are clean. The letters are even. The text is accurate. In another 2 or 3 months, it will be finished. The illuminator will add his decorations. The binder will assemble it. And then it will go to London. To a man he'll never meet. To be used for what? Private prayer? Public display? Both? Neither. He catches himself. His mind is wandering too far. He gently brings his attention back to the psalm, back to the words. For thy magnificence is elevated above the heavens. The psalms continue, one after another after another. There's a reading between them, a lesson from Scripture. Tonight, it's from the book of Job. The reader, one of the younger monks with a clear voice, reads about Job's sufferings, about his patience, about his faith despite everything. It's a fitting reading for a monastery. The monastic life is in many ways about patience, about enduring, about faith that continues even when, especially when, there's nothing exciting or dramatic to sustain it. After the reading, more psalms, and then a canticle, a hymn, the Te Deum. We praise thee, O God. And finally, prayers. The abbot leads them. Prayers for the monastery, for the king, for the church, for the sick, for travelers, for the dead, for those in need. And then it's over. The monks bow to the altar. They file out of their stalls. Matins is finished. But immediately, without pause, Lauds begins. The morning office, though the word morning is perhaps misleading. It's still dark outside, still hours before dawn. Lauds is shorter than Matins. Perhaps 30 minutes, more psalms, more prayers. The same rhythm, the same chant, the same timeless quality. By the time Lauds ends, there's the faintest hint of light outside. Not dawn, not yet, but the darkness is maybe, just slightly less absolute. The stars are still visible, but they seem a bit dimmer. Or perhaps that's imagination. The monks file out of the church. Some will return to their cells for another hour or two of sleep. This is allowed, encouraged even. The body needs rest. But Brother Thomas is a scribe, and scribes have different responsibilities. Along with a handful of other monks, the cook, the infirmarian, the sacristan, the guest master, he has work that begins early. So instead of returning to bed, he makes his way to the warming room. The warming room is one of the few rooms in the monastery that has a fire during the winter months. Not in the individual cells, not in the workrooms, just here, in this common space, where monks can warm themselves before beginning their day's labor. Brother Thomas enters. A small fire is already burning in the hearth. Just a small fire. Enough to take the edge off the cold. A few other monks are already there, holding their hands toward the flames. No one speaks. The great silence continues. But they exchange glances, small nods. The fellowship of shared discomfort, shared routine. Brother Thomas finds a spot near the fire. Not too close. That would be hogging the warmth. Just close enough to feel it. He holds out his hands. The cold has stiffened his fingers. This is always the way in autumn and winter. The first thing a scribe must do each day is warm his hands. Flexible fingers are essential. Stiff fingers cannot grip the quill properly, cannot control the movements with the necessary precision. He stands there for perhaps 10 minutes. Slowly, warmth seeps back into his hands. The stiffness eases. He flexes his fingers, testing them. Better, much better. Around him, the other monks begin to drift away, heading to their various responsibilities. Brother Thomas gives his hands another minute near the fire. And then he too leaves, heading to the refectory for a simple breakfast before prime. After prime, the hour of prayer that comes with the sunrise, Brother Thomas finally makes his way to the scriptorium. The sky outside is lightening steadily now. Dawn has come, though the sun itself hasn't yet cleared the eastern hills. The light is soft, grey-blue, gentle. The kind of light that seems to emerge from the air itself, rather than from any particular source. Brother Thomas climbs the stairs to the second floor of the eastern range of buildings. The stairs are stone, worn smooth by decades of feet. His sandals make soft sounds on them. His breath is visible in the cold air of the stairwell. At the top of the stairs, a door. Heavy oak, with iron hinges. He pushes it open. The scriptorium. This is his place. His domain. Where he spends most of his waking hours. The room he knows better than any other place in the world. It's a long room, perhaps 40 feet long and 20 feet wide. The ceiling is vaulted stone. The underside of the roof above. The floor is wooden planks, smoothed by use. The walls are thick stone, plastered and whitewashed on the inside. The whiteness helps reflect light, making the room brighter. But the most striking feature of the scriptorium is the windows. The entire south wall is windows, large windows. This is unusual. Windows are expensive, glass is expensive. But for a scriptorium, good light is essential. So the monastery has invested in these windows. They're not like modern windows. There are no large panes of clear glass. Instead, each window is divided by stone mullions into smaller sections, and each section is filled with, well, it depends on the window. Some have small pieces of glass, held together with lead strips. Others have oiled parchment stretched across frames. The parchment lets in light, while keeping out most of the wind and rain. It's cheaper than glass, though not as clear. The effect is that the room is filled with diffused light. Not harsh, not direct, but soft and even. Perfect for the careful work of copying manuscripts. Brother Thomas enters and takes in the familiar space. The smell of the scriptorium is distinctive. Parchment, ink, oak gall, gum arabic, leather, wood, beeswax. All of these scents blend together into something unique. If Brother Thomas were brought here blindfolded, he would know this room by smell alone. The other scribes are already here in Tis. Brother Ambrose, the head scribe, is at his desk near the window. Brother Richard is settling in at his place. Brother William is arranging his materials. Brother Peter, the youngest, is sweeping the floor. One of his duties as a novice. They nod to each other. Still no speaking. The great silence has ended, technically. Prime has passed. But in the scriptorium, silence is maintained anyway. This is a place of concentration, of focus. Unnecessary speech would disturb the work. Brother Thomas makes his way to his desk. It's third from the window. Close enough to get excellent light, but not the absolute best position. That belongs to Brother Ambrose, as is proper. He's the most senior. He's earned that spot. The desk is... well, it's not really a desk in the modern sense. It's more like a slanted lectern, a wooden stand with a flat surface tilted at an angle. Perhaps 30 degrees from horizontal. This angle is important. It allows the scribe to work without hunching over too much. It reduces strain on the back and neck. The surface itself is smooth wood. Oak, probably, though darkened and polished by years of use. At the top edge, there's a small ledge to keep the manuscript from sliding down. At the bottom, a wider ledge that serves as a shelf for tools. Brother Thomas's stool sits in front of this desk. It's hard wood. No cushion. That would be considered an unnecessary comfort. But it's worn smooth. The countless hours he's spent on this stool have shaped it, almost to his form. He sits down. The height is perfect. His feet rest flat on the floor. His arms can reach the desk surface comfortably. This is important. If the height is wrong, if the posture is awkward, the hand cramps, the back aches, the work suffers. Now, to begin. But first, he must arrange his materials. A scribe's setup is precise. Everything must be in its proper place. within easy reach, but not cluttering the work surface. First, the manuscript itself. He retrieves it from its storage place, a wooden case on a shelf beneath his desk. The case is simple but well made. Dovetailed corners, a sliding lid. It protects the unfinished manuscript from dust and damage. He opens the case and lifts out the manuscript carefully. It's not bound yet. Right now, it's just loose pages. Each one a single large sheet of vellum, folded once to create 2 leaves. 4 pages. These folded sheets are called gatherings or quires. When the whole book is finished, the gatherings will be sewn together and bound. Brother Thomas is currently working on the 8th gathering. He carefully unfolds it and positions it on his desk. The vellum is cream-colored, smooth on one side, slightly rougher on the other. This is the nature of vellum. Animal skin, treated and stretched. The smooth side was the outside of the skin, the hair side. The rougher side was the inside, the flesh side. The best vellum has both sides prepared until they were almost indistinguishable. But even the best still has some difference. Scribes generally prefer to write on the flesh side. It's slightly more absorbent. Ink sits on it better. The page before Brother Thomas has lines already ruled on it. These were done weeks ago when he first began this manuscript. Before writing a single word, a scribe must prepare all his pages, ruling them with guidelines to keep the text straight and even. The lines were made with a lead stylus, not lead the metal, lead the graphite. A lead point makes a faint grey line, visible enough to guide the writing, but light enough that it doesn't distract from the finished text. Some scribes use a dry point instead, a stylus that scores the vellum slightly, creating an indented line. Both methods work. Brother Thomas has ruled this page with incredible precision. The lines are perfectly parallel, perfectly evenly spaced. There are narrow lines to guide the top and bottom of the main text. And there are margins marked off at the edges, spaces where the text shouldn't go. All of this preparation, the cutting of the vellum, the ruling of the lines, the planning of the layout, was done before he wrote a single letter. This is the way of manuscript work. Plan everything, prepare everything. Only then begin the actual writing. Now his tools. He reaches for his quills and he keeps several ready, each one prepared for different purposes. For the main text, he uses a quill with a broad nib, perhaps 3 millimeters wide. For rubrics, the red titles and section headings, he has a narrower quill. For very fine work, an even narrower one. The quills are goose feathers. Geese have large, sturdy flight feathers, perfect for writing. The monastery keeps geese partly for this reason. When a goose is killed for meat, the feathers are saved. The best ones go to the scriptorium. Preparing a quill is an art in itself. First, the feather must be hardened. This is usually done by heating it gently. Some scribes use hot sand, others hot ashes. The heating drives out moisture and oils, making the quill more durable. Then, the shaft must be shaped. The natural shaft of a feather is round. But for writing, a quill needs to be cut flat on one side. This gives better control. The cut is made at an angle, creating a sloped tip. And at the very end, a slit is cut up the center. This slit allows the quill to flex slightly as it writes. and it creates a channel for ink to flow from the shaft to the tip. All of this work is done by Brother Martin, who has a talent for it. He prepares quills for all the scribes. Brother Thomas receives a fresh batch every few weeks, but he's also learned to maintain his quills himself. He carries a small knife for this purpose. When a quill becomes dull or damaged, he can recut it. He selects his main writing quill now, tests it on a scrap of parchment. The nib is sharp. The ink flow is good. Perfect. Next, his ink. This sits in a small container made from a cow's horn. The horn has been cleaned, sealed at one end, and fitted with a wooden plug at the other. It's a common type of ink pot, simple, sturdy, and with a narrow opening that helps prevent the ink from spilling. The ink itself is made in the monastery. The recipe is a closely guarded secret, passed from one generation of scribes to the next. But the basic process is well known. Oak galls. Those round growths that form on oak trees when certain wasps lay their eggs are collected and dried. They're then ground into powder. To this is added iron sulfate, also called vitriol or copperas. You can get it from a metal worker. It's a byproduct of working with iron. These two ingredients, oak gall and iron sulfate, are the heart of the ink. But there's more. Gum arabic is added. This is a sap from acacia trees. It thickens the ink and helps it stick to the vellum. Water is added to bring it to the right consistency. Some scribes add a bit of wine or vinegar. Some add honey. Each scriptorium has its own variations. The resulting ink is deep black, or rather, it starts as deep black. Over time, centuries, it will fade to a rich brown. But when fresh, it's as black as night. It flows well from a quill. It dries relatively quickly, and it's permanent. Water won't wash it away once it's dry. Centuries from now, long after Brother Thomas is dead and forgotten, his words will still be readable. He unplugs the horn and sets it carefully in a depression carved into his desk ledge. Just a small hollow designed to hold the ink pot steady. Now his other tools. A knife. Not for cutting, but for erasing. When a mistake is made, and mistakes are inevitable, no matter how careful the scribe, the error must be removed. This is done by gently scraping the ink away with a very sharp knife. The vellum is tough. It can take a surprising amount of scraping, but it must be done carefully. Scrape too hard, and you'll create a hole. Scrape unevenly, and the surface becomes rough, making it difficult to write on that spot again. A pumice stone. This is a light, porous volcanic rock. After scraping away an error, the pumice is used to smooth the vellum again. Gentle rubbing with pumice brings the surface back to something like its original smoothness. A straight edge, a thin piece of wood or metal, perfectly straight, used to keep lines level and margins even. A compass. For ruling circles or drawing geometric designs. An awl. A sharp point for poking small holes to mark positions. All of these tools are arranged on the ledge below his writing surface. Everything in its place. Everything within reach. This organization is essential. When you're focused on the text, on the formation of each letter, you can't afford to fumble for tools. Your hand must know where to reach. Brother Thomas is ready now. Everything is prepared. The manuscript is positioned. The tools are arranged. His hands are warm and flexible. The light from the windows is growing stronger. The soft grey-blue of early morning is giving way to clearer light as the sun rises higher. He takes a breath, lets it out slowly, centers himself. Then he dips his quill in the ink. The quill point breaks the surface. The ink clings to it. Black ink, thick and smooth. He lifts the quill and touches it to the edge of the horn, letting the excess drip back. Too much ink on the quill will cause blots and smears. Too little will create faint, uneven letters. He positions the quill above the vellum. His hand hovers there, steady, controlled. The quill tip perhaps half an inch above the surface. And then he begins to write. The quill touches the vellum, moves, creates a mark. The first stroke of the letter E, a vertical line drawn downward. The quill makes a soft scratching sound, like a whisper, like cloth sliding on cloth, gentle, rhythmic. Brother Thomas makes 3 horizontal strokes across the vertical. The letter E is complete. The ink is wet and dark on the cream vellum, beautiful in its way, simple, clear, perfectly formed. He continues, the letter R, then U, then C. Word by word, the text emerges. My heart overflows with a goodly theme. This is Psalm 45. The psalm he's been working toward for the past week. Each letter is carefully formed. Each stroke is deliberate. The Carolingian minuscule script he uses is clear and readable. Elegant without being overly ornate. The letters flow from his quill with a steady rhythm. He doesn't write quickly. Speed is not the goal. Consistency is the goal. Perfection, or as close to perfection as human hand can achieve, is the goal. Brother Thomas's world has narrowed now. There's the vellum, the text in his exemplar, the book he's copying from, positioned to his right, the quill in his hand, the letters taking shape. Nothing else matters. Nothing else exists. This is his meditation. This is his prayer. Each letter is an offering. Each word is an act of devotion. The scratching of his quill blends with the scratching of 5 other quills. Around him, his brother scribes work at their own manuscripts. 6 men, all writing, all focused. The sound of their work creates a kind of music. Not melody, but rhythm. 6 quills scratching away. 6 breaths, slow and steady. An occasional shift of weight on a wooden stool. The creak of a floorboard. Time passes. How much? It's hard to say. In the scriptorium, time moves differently. Minutes blend together. An hour can feel like 20 minutes, or like 3 hours. The work creates its own temporality. The light from the windows grows stronger. The sun has cleared the eastern hills now. Its light, filtered through the oiled parchment windows, fills the scriptorium. Not harsh, not glaring, just present, steady, reliable. Brother Thomas reaches the end of the first line. He's written perhaps 12 words. In a modern printed book, this would take perhaps 2 seconds to read. But it's taken him nearly 10 minutes to write. And he's not even a slow scribe. This is simply the pace of manuscript work. He lifts his quill and examines what he's written. The letters are even. The spacing is consistent. The baseline is straight. He nods slightly. Good. He dips his quill again and continues with the second line. I say, my works are for the king. The work continues. Line after line. Word after word. Letter after letter. Brother Thomas has been writing for perhaps 2 hours now. His hand is beginning to tire. This is normal. Expected. The grip required to hold a quill properly. Thumb and first 2 fingers, with the shaft resting in the web between thumb and forefinger. Uses muscles that tire with repetition. He can feel the fatigue building. A slight ache in his thumb, a tension in his forearm, the beginning of stiffness in his wrist. But he doesn't stop. Not yet. He knows his limits. He can continue for another hour before he'll need a real rest. For now, he just adjusts his grip slightly, shifts his weight on the stool, rolls his shoulders back. These small adjustments are enough to ease the tension. Around him, the other scribes are managing their own fatigue in similar ways. Brother Richard stretches his fingers, opening and closing his hands several times before returning to his work. Brother William shifts his stool slightly, adjusting the angle. Even Brother Ambrose, the most experienced scribe here, occasionally pauses to flex his wrist. This is the reality of manuscript work. It's physically demanding. Not in the way that field work is demanding, or blacksmithing, or building, but in its own way, it takes a toll. Hours of sitting, hours of maintaining precise control, hours of focus. The body tires, the eyes strain, the mind grows weary, and yet they continue, because this is their work, this is their offering, this is what they do. Let's pause for a moment to understand more deeply what it means to work in a scriptorium. What the rules are, what the expectations are, what the culture of this place is like. The scriptorium at St. Elred's is governed by several principles. They're not written down exactly. Or rather, some of them are. In the monastery's customary, the book that records the specific practices of this particular house. But many of them are simply understood. Passed from experienced scribes to newcomers through example and occasional quiet instruction. The first principle is silence. We've mentioned this before, but it's worth exploring more deeply. The silence of the scriptorium is more than just not talking. It's a quality of attention, a quality of presence. When Brother Thomas sits at his desk, quill in hand, he's entering into a particular kind of space, a space where words matter, where precision matters, where every stroke counts. Speech would break this space, would shatter the concentration, would introduce error. But the silence isn't oppressive. It's not the silence of fear or restriction. It's the silence of deep work, the silence of craftsmen absorbed in their craft. A carpenter shaping a joint, a weaver at a loom, a scribe copying a text. All of them work best in silence, or at least in quiet, where the only sounds are the sounds of the work itself. Of course, silence isn't always possible. Sometimes a scribe needs help. Sometimes a question must be asked. For these situations, the scriptorium has developed a system of hand gestures, a language without words. If a scribe needs more ink, he holds up his empty ink horn. The gesture is clear. Brother Ambrose, or one of the others, will prepare more ink and bring it over. If a quill is damaged and needs replacing, the scribe makes a writing motion in the air. Again, the meaning is understood. if there's a difficult passage in the exemplar, words that are unclear or potentially incorrect, the scribe points to the problem and shrugs. This indicates confusion, a request for clarification. These gestures are used sparingly. Most of the time, they're not needed. A skilled scribe prepares for his day's work carefully. He makes sure he has enough ink, enough quills. He reviews his exemplar beforehand, identifying any difficult passages. Preparation eliminates most problems before they arise. But when gestures are needed, they work. Communication happens without speech. The silence is preserved. The second principle is patience. This is perhaps the most essential quality for a scribe. More important than skill even. More important than learning. Because skill can be developed. Learning can be acquired. But patience must be cultivated, nurtured, practiced every single day. Manuscript work cannot be rushed. It simply can't. When you rush, you make mistakes. Letters become uneven. Lines waver. Errors creep in. And errors are costly. Not just in terms of materials, though vellum is expensive and ink is valuable, but in terms of time. If Brother Thomas makes a small error, say, he writes an A where there should be an E, he must correct it. This means scraping away the wrong letter with his knife, smoothing the vellum with pumice, letting it dry, and then rewriting the letter. This process might take 5 or 10 minutes, much longer than it took to write the wrong letter in the first place. If the error is larger, if he skips an entire word or writes the wrong word, the correction is more complex. Sometimes the only solution is to start that section over, or even start the entire page over. Hours of work lost. An expensive piece of vellum wasted. So patience is essential. It's better to work slowly and carefully than to rush and make errors. Much better. Brother Thomas learned this lesson years ago when he was a novice scribe. He remembers the frustration of those early years, the desire to work faster, to complete pages more quickly, to prove himself. And he remembers the gentle but firm corrections from Brother Ambrose. Look at this letter. See how it leans to the right? Now look at this one. It leans to the left. They should both be perfectly vertical. Try again. At first, these corrections felt like criticisms, like failures. But slowly, Brother Thomas came to understand. Brother Ambrose wasn't criticizing. He was teaching, helping Brother Thomas see what his own eyes had missed, training him to recognize perfection, or at least to recognize imperfection, which amounts to the same thing. And slowly, Brother Thomas improved. His letters became more consistent. His lines became straighter. His spacing became more even. The improvement was gradual. So gradual that he barely noticed it himself. But others noticed. After 2 years, Brother Ambrose allowed him to work on manuscripts that would leave the monastery, that would be sold or given to patrons. This was a mark of trust, a recognition that his work had reached an acceptable standard. Even now, after 12 years, Brother Thomas continues to learn, continues to refine his skill. Every manuscript teaches him something, shows him some small way he can improve, some tiny adjustment that will make his work better. This is the path of patience. not achieving perfection immediately, but moving toward it, day by day, page by page, letter by letter. The third principle is humility. This might seem strange. What does humility have to do with copying texts? But in the scriptorium, humility is essential. A scribe works with sacred texts, or at least with important texts. Bibles, theological treatises, philosophical works, the writings of saints and scholars. These texts contain wisdom, knowledge, truth. The scribe is merely the instrument through which these texts are preserved. He's not the author. He's not the source. He's just the hand that writes. This understanding keeps a scribe humble, keeps him from pride, from thinking too highly of his skill. Yes, skill is necessary. Yes, skill is admirable. But skill in the service of what? In the service of something greater than the scribe himself. Brother Thomas sometimes thinks of himself as a kind of tool, like the quill he holds, or the ink he uses. God works through the quill to create letters on vellum, and God works through Brother Thomas to create manuscripts. The skill is real. The effort is real. But the ultimate source is elsewhere, beyond him. This humility has practical effects. It keeps Brother Thomas from becoming too attached to his work, from being devastated when he must scrape away an error and start again, from feeling resentment when Brother Ambrose points out an imperfection. The work isn't his, it's God's. He's just the instrument, and an imperfect instrument at that. So of course there will be errors and of course there will be corrections. This is the nature of human work. The goal is to offer his best, to bring his full attention and skill to each letter, but not to become proud, not to think that the beauty of the manuscript comes from him. It comes through him. That's different. These three principles, silence, patience, humility, shape the culture of the scriptorium. They create an environment where careful, beautiful work is possible, where books are created that will last for centuries, where the sacred task of preserving knowledge can happen. The bell rings for terce, the third hour of prayer, mid-morning. Brother Thomas is in the middle of a line. He carefully finishes the word he's writing. No need to rush and make an error. Then sets down his quill. He blots the last few letters carefully with a small piece of linen. The ink is still wet. If he doesn't blot it, it might smear when he closes the manuscript. Around him, the other scribes are doing the same, setting down their quills, blotting their work, closing their manuscripts carefully. They rise from their stools. Brother Thomas feels his body protest slightly. He's been sitting for how long? Perhaps 3 hours, with only brief pauses to stretch. His back is stiff. His legs are slightly numb from sitting. This is normal. This is the price of the work. He stretches slightly. Not dramatically. Just a small arching of the back. A roll of the shoulders. Enough to ease the worst of the stiffness. The scribes file out of the scriptorium and down the stairs. Through the cloister to the church. The morning is well advanced now. The sun is perhaps a quarter of the way to its zenith. The October day is cool but not cold. The sky is a clear, deep blue. The kind of blue you only get in autumn. Clean. Crisp. In the church, the monks gather for terce. This is a shorter office than matins or lauds. Perhaps 15 or 20 minutes. 3 psalms, a short reading, prayers for the blessing of the day's work. Brother Thomas stands in his place in the choir stalls. The Latin words flow over him, through him. He said these words thousands of times. They're part of him now. His lips shape them almost without thought. O God, save me by thy name. The chanting of the office gives his mind a rest. After hours of intense concentration on copying, the familiar rhythm of the Psalms is relaxing, refreshing. His eyes don't need to focus on tiny letters. His hand doesn't need to maintain precise control. He just stands, breathes, sings. After terce, the monks file out of the church. The great silence has ended now. Conversation is permitted. But even so, there's not much talking. Most of the monks simply return to their work, to the gardens, to the kitchen, to the infirmary, to the scriptorium. Brother Thomas walks slowly back across the cloister. He pauses at the well in the center of the courtyard. There's a cup hanging from a hook on the well's stone edge. He lifts it, dips it in the bucket of fresh water, and drinks. The water is cold and clean. It tastes faintly of stone. He drinks deeply, then returns the cup to its hook. Simple actions, simple moments. But these moments are part of the day's rhythm, part of the pattern that structures his life. He returns to the scriptorium, climbs the stairs, enters the long room. The light is stronger now. The sun is higher. The quality of light has changed from the soft grey blue of early morning to something brighter, more golden. Still filtered through the oiled parchment windows, but noticeably different, Brother Thomas returns to his desk. Before he begins writing again, he takes a moment to care for his hands. This is important. Essential, really. He flexes his fingers, opens and closes his hand several times, rotates his wrist in slow circles, first one direction, then the other. These simple exercises help prevent the stiffness and pain that can plague scribes. Some of the older scribes at St. Aelred's suffer from chronic pain in their hands. Brother Anselm, who's in his 60s now, can no longer hold a quill steadily. His fingers are twisted, the joints are swollen. He's developed what some call the scribe's cramp. Years of gripping a quill in exactly the same way, for hours every day, have damaged his hands. Brother Thomas has seen this, has learned from it. He's careful to stretch his hands regularly, to vary his grip slightly, to take breaks, to not push through pain. A scribe's hands are his tools, just as much as his quills and ink. He must care for them, preserve them, because without them he cannot work. His hands feel loose now, flexible, ready. He settles back onto his stool and opens his manuscript. The page looks up at him, perhaps a third complete. The letters march across the vellum in neat lines. Black ink on cream parchment. Beautiful in a simple way. He finds his place. Psalm 45 is nearly complete. Just a few more verses. Then he'll begin Psalm 46 on the next page. He dips his quill, positions it over the vellum, and continues. My tongue is the pen of a scribe that writes swiftly. It's a fitting verse. Brother Thomas smiles slightly as he writes it. The psalmist comparing his tongue to a scribe's pen. The irony isn't lost on him. Here he is, a scribe copying words about scribes. It's a moment of... what? Self-reference? Meta-awareness? He's not sure what to call it, but it amuses him slightly. Though perhaps swiftly is an exaggeration. A scribe's pen moves many things, carefully, precisely, steadily. But swiftly isn't usually one of them. The work continues. The morning advances. The scriptorium fills with the sound of 6 quills scratching on vellum. 6 scribes absorbed in their work. Each in his own world. Each letter a small universe unto itself. Brother Thomas's mind settles into that particular state that comes with this work. Not quite thought, not quite meditation, something in between. His conscious mind is occupied with the shapes of letters, the flow of ink, the positioning of each stroke. But beneath that, there's a deeper awareness, a sense of connection to the words he's copying, to the countless scribes who've copied these same words before him, to the readers who will someday read these words in the book he's creating. He's a link in a chain, stretching backward to the original author of the Psalm. King David, tradition says, though Brother Thomas knows that some psalms were written by others, and stretching forward to... who? The merchant in London who will buy this psalter? His children? His grandchildren? Will this book still exist in 100 years? 200? 500? He doesn't know. Can't know. But he hopes so. He hopes that his careful work will ensure that these letters, formed so precisely, will last. That the words will continue to be read, to be prayed, to comfort and challenge and inspire people he'll never meet. This thought fills him with a quiet satisfaction. Not pride exactly. More like purpose. A sense that his work matters. That these hours of careful labor are not wasted, are not trivial. They're part of something larger. Something that extends beyond his own small life. The morning wears on. Brother Thomas completes Psalm 45. He lifts his quill from the final word and examines the page. Nearly complete now, just the colophon to add. A small note at the bottom indicating which scribe did this section. Not his name, exactly, just his mark. A small symbol that identifies his work. But that will wait. First, the page must dry completely. The ink needs time to set fully. He'll leave it open to the air. Tomorrow, when he returns, it will be ready for the colophon. And then he'll turn to a fresh page and begin Psalm 46. For now, though, he starts preparing that next page. Taking out a fresh sheet of vellum from his supply. Checking it for imperfections. Feeling its surface. Planning where the text will go. This preparatory work is satisfying in its own way. Not as intense as the actual writing, but necessary, important. Everything must be ready. Everything must be perfect. Or as close to perfect as human hands can make it. The bell for sext rings while Brother Thomas is examining his vellum. Noon has arrived. Time for the 6th hour of prayer, and then the main meal of the day. He sets the vellum aside carefully, returns it to its storage place beneath his desk. The prepared pages are precious. They must be protected from damage, from spills, from careless handling. He closes his inkhorn, wipes his quill clean with a small cloth, arranges his tools neatly on the desk ledge. Everything in its place, everything orderly. When he returns after the meal, he'll know exactly where everything is. The scribes descend from the scriptorium. 6 men, moving slowly down the stone stairs. No one speaks. No one needs to. They've done this countless times. The routine is ingrained. In the church, the monks gather for sext. By now, the sun is directly overhead. Its light streams through the church's windows, creating pools of brightness on the stone floor. Dust motes dance in the light beams. The air is warmer than it was at matins. Not warm exactly. Stone churches are never truly warm, but less cold, noticeably less cold. The office proceeds. 3 more psalms, a reading from Paul's letter to the Philippians, prayers for the afternoon's work. The monks' voices blend in the familiar chant. The words rise and fall, echo and fade. Brother Thomas prays with half his attention. The other half is already thinking about the afternoon, about Psalm 46, about the layout of the next page, about the letters he'll form. He catches himself in this distraction and gently redirects his thoughts back to the prayer, back to the present moment. This is a constant practice, noticing when the mind wanders, gently bringing it back, again and again. After sext, the monks proceed to the refectory for the midday meal. This is the main meal of the day, the most substantial. Though substantial is a relative term in a monastery. The refectory is a long hall, the ceiling is vaulted. The walls are stone, plastered, and whitewashed like the scriptorium. Long wooden tables run the length of the room, with benches on either side. At one end, a raised table where the abbot and senior monks sit. At the other end, a lectern for the reader. The monks file in and stand before their places. The abbot enters last. He makes his way to his seat at the high table. He raises his hand in blessing. The monks bow their heads. The abbot says a prayer of thanksgiving for the food. And then, benedicit. The monks respond, Deo gratias. Thanks be to God. They sit. Servants begin bringing food from the kitchen. The servants are not monks, but lay workers. Men from the village who work for the monastery, in exchange for food and a small wage. The meal arrives. First, bread. Large loaves of brown bread, still warm from the monastery's bakehouse. The smell of it fills the refectory, yeasty, comforting. Each monk takes a piece. The bread is dense, heavy, made from rye and wheat flour, mixed. The crust is thick and dark. The inside is chewy, slightly coarse. Brother Thomas breaks off a piece, chews it slowly. The bread is good, not fine white bread like wealthy people eat, but honest bread, filling bread. The kind of bread that sustains. Next comes the main dish. Today it's a thick pottage. A stew that's been simmering since early morning. The base is beans, white beans, cooked until they're soft. Almost creamy. To this has been added vegetables. Onions, leeks, turnips, carrots. All from the monastery's gardens. All harvested over the past weeks and stored in the cellars. The vegetables have been cooking for hours. They've surrendered their structure, become soft. Their flavors have melded together. The result is thick, rich, filling. Each monk receives a wooden bowl of this pottage. Brother Thomas takes his bowl and uses his bread to scoop up the thick mixture. The first bite is hot, almost too hot. He blows on it gently. The second bite is better, warm, but not scalding. The flavors bloom on his tongue. Onion, carrot, the earthiness of the beans, a hint of herbs, thyme, perhaps, sage. There's also cheese, a hard cheese made in the monastery from the milk of their own cows. This cheese has been aging for months. It's pale yellow, firm, slightly crumbly, with a sharp, tangy flavor. Brother Thomas cuts a small piece with his knife. The knife is simple, just a blade and a wooden handle. But sharp, functional, and ale. Weak ale, brewed in the monastery. Barely alcoholic. More of a beverage than an intoxicant. Water can't always be trusted. Wells can become contaminated. Rivers carry disease. But ale? The brewing process kills whatever might be harmful. So the monks drink ale. Gallons of it. Every day. Brother Thomas lifts his wooden cup. The ale is cool, slightly sweet, with a faint bitterness from the hops. It washes down the bread and cheese and pottage, cleanses the palate, refreshes. As the monks eat, a young novice stands at the lectern and reads aloud. Today, the reading is from St. Augustine's Confessions. The reader's voice is clear. Not loud, but projected, filling the hall. He reads about Augustine's conversion, about his long spiritual struggle, his years of searching, his mother Monica's prayers, his eventual turning to God in a garden in Milan. Brother Thomas has heard this text many times, probably a dozen times, but each reading reveals something new. Or perhaps he's different each time, hears it with different ears, different understanding. He chews his bread slowly, listens to the words, thinks about his own path to this life. He wasn't like Augustine, didn't have years of resistance, didn't live a life of sin before conversion. His path was simpler, more straightforward. He came from a merchant family, middle sort of people, not wealthy but comfortable. He was the third son. The first son would inherit the business. The second son was apprenticed to a goldsmith. Brother Thomas, he was given a choice. Another apprenticeship or the church. He chose the church. Not from any dramatic vision, not from any powerful religious experience, simply because it felt right. The life appealed to him, the order, the learning, the sense of purpose. So at 18 he came to St. Aelred's as a postulant, then a novice. Then, after a year of testing, a full member of the community. That was 12 years ago. More than a third of his life has now been spent here. This is his home. These monks are his family. This work is his calling. The reading continues. The meal continues. Brother Thomas eats slowly, mindfully. The rule encourages the monks not to focus too much on the pleasure of food, to eat for sustenance, not for enjoyment. But it's hard not to enjoy good bread, good ale. A warm, filling stew on a cool autumn day. He finishes his bread, his pottage, his cheese, his ale. The meal wasn't large, but it was enough, more than enough. He feels satisfied, content. The reading ends. The abbot stands, says a prayer of thanks. The monks file out of the refectory. There's now a brief period of recreation, perhaps 30 minutes before they must return to work. Some monks walk in the cloister. Some sit in the warming room. Some simply rest. Brother Thomas chooses to walk. He moves slowly around the cloister, following the covered walkway that surrounds the central courtyard. The courtyard is simple. Grass, a few herbs growing near the well, rosemary, thyme, lavender. Their scent rises in the autumn sun. He meets Brother William, the cook, coming the other way. They exchange nods, a few words about the weather, about the meal. Simple conversation, nothing deep. Just the comfortable exchange of men who live and work together. After 2 circuits of the cloister, Brother Thomas feels ready to return to work. His meal has settled, his mind is clear. The afternoon work period awaits. Perhaps 3 or 4 more hours in the scriptorium before Vespers. He climbs the stairs once more, enters the scriptorium, returns to his desk, opens his manuscript, picks up his quill. The afternoon in the scriptorium is different from the morning. The quality of light changes. The quality of attention changes. Even the quality of silence changes. In the morning, the silence feels fresh, crisp, full of possibility. The work ahead is unknown. The page is waiting. There's an energy to it, an anticipation. But in the afternoon, the silence feels heavier, warmer, more settled, like dust that's had time to settle, like air that's been breathed and rebreathed. Brother Thomas returns to his desk. The morning's work sits before him, the page of Psalm 45 nearly complete, waiting for its final touches. He examines it with fresh eyes that have rested during the meal, eyes that can now see what the tired morning eyes might have missed. He looks carefully at each line, each word, each letter, checking for consistency, for errors, for anything that needs correction. The page is good, very good. The letters are even. The spacing is consistent. The lines are straight. He sees no errors, no corrections needed, just the colophon to add. And that can wait until tomorrow, when the ink is fully dry and set. Satisfied, he carefully sets this page aside and takes out fresh vellum for the next section. Psalm 46. He's already prepared this vellum. The lines are ruled. The margins are marked. It's ready for text. He positions the vellum on his desk, adjusts it slightly. The angle must be perfect. If the vellum is skewed even slightly, the text will appear crooked when the book is finished. Now he consults his exemplar. The book he's copying from. It's a psalter from the monastery's library, an older book, perhaps 50 years old. The work of a skilled scribe from a previous generation. The text is clear. The layout is good. Brother Thomas uses it as his model. He finds Psalm 46 in the exemplar, reads through it once, just to familiarize himself, to understand the flow of the text, the rhythm of the words. Deus noster refugium et virtus. God is our refuge and strength, a helper in troubles that have found us exceedingly. It's a psalm about God's protection, about trust in the midst of chaos, about peace even when the world shakes. A good psalm, a comforting psalm. Brother Thomas dips his quill, takes a breath, begins. The first letter is a capital, not just any capital, but a large decorative initial. This is where the illuminator will later add color and gold leaf and intricate designs. But for now, Brother Thomas must create the basic letter form, the outline that the illuminator will fill and embellish. He draws the D slowly, very slowly. It's larger than the text letters, perhaps 3 times as tall. The curves must be smooth, perfect arcs, no wobbles, no irregularities. This takes concentration, intense concentration. His hand must move smoothly, the quill must maintain constant pressure. Too much pressure, and the line becomes too thick. Too little, and it becomes faint. He completes the D, sets down his quill, examines it. The curve is good, smooth, even. The proportions are correct. He nods. Good. Now, the rest of the first line. Regular text letters. Smaller. Quicker to form. But still careful. Still precise. The words flow from his quill, one after another. The rhythm of the morning returns. Dip. Right. Dip. Right. The soft scratch of quill on vellum. The gentle sound of ink flowing onto parchment. Around him, the other scribes are similarly absorbed. Brother Ambrose is working on a gospel book, the text of Matthew, sacred text, requiring his highest skill. Brother Richard is copying a theological treatise, the works of Anselm of Canterbury, dense theology, challenging to read, challenging to copy. Brother William is working on a martyrology, a calendar of saints' feast days, each day of the year marked with the saints to be commemorated. The afternoon light is beautiful. It slants into the scriptorium at a lower angle now, creating patterns of light and shadow. The quality is golden, warm. It makes the cream vellum seem to glow. But this light also presents challenges. As the sun moves lower in the sky, the angle of light changes constantly. What was perfectly lit an hour ago might now be in shadow. What was in shadow might now be too bright. Brother Ambrose, there's head scribe, watches this carefully. Periodically, he rises from his desk and adjusts the window coverings, angling the oiled parchment to direct light where it's needed. It's a subtle art, requiring attention and judgment. Brother Thomas appreciates these adjustments. When his desk falls into shadow, Brother Ambrose notices and corrects it. The light brightens, the vellum becomes easier to see. The work can continue without strain. The afternoon wears on. Brother Thomas completes the first page of Psalm 46. It's gone well. No errors. No corrections needed. The text is clean, clear, ready for the illuminator's work. He carefully sets this page aside to dry, takes out another prepared sheet, continues with the next section of the psalm. But now he's beginning to feel the fatigue more strongly. It's been how many hours? Perhaps 6 or 7 hours of writing today, with only brief breaks. His hand aches, not sharply, but a dull, persistent ache. His fingers are stiff. His wrist is sore. This is the challenge of the afternoon. The body's limits make themselves known. The mind is willing, but the flesh is weak. Brother Thomas sets down his quill, flexes his fingers, rotates his wrist, massages his hand gently with his other hand. These small acts of self-care are necessary, essential. He glances around the scriptorium. The other scribes are managing their own fatigue. Brother Peter, the youngest, seems tireless. His quill moves steadily. But then, he's only 18. Youth has its advantages. Brother Richard's, or who's closer to Brother Thomas's age, is clearly feeling the strain. He's shifting on his stool frequently, rolling his shoulders, stretching his neck. The signs are unmistakable. And Brother Anselm, the oldest scribe, has stopped working entirely. He's sitting at his desk, but his quill is set aside. His hands rest in his lap. This is allowed. The older monks are not expected to maintain the same pace as the younger ones. Brother Anselm has earned his rest. Brother Thomas feels a surge of compassion for the old scribe. Brother Anselm was once the best copyist at St. Elred's. His work was legendary. Perfect letters, flawless pages. But age and arthritis have ended his career. Now he can barely hold a quill. His hands shake. His eyes are weak. Brother Thomas hopes he'll never reach that state. Hopes his hands will remain strong. His eyes sharp, but he knows it's not entirely within his control. Bodies age, decay, fail. This is the nature of mortal flesh. He returns his attention to his work. Psalm 46 continues to unfold, line by line, word by word. Therefore, we shall not fear when the earth shall be troubled. The psalm speaks of upheaval, of mountains falling into the sea, of waters roaring, but through it all, the refrain, God is our refuge, God is our strength, we shall not fear. Brother Thomas finds comfort in these words, not because his life is particularly troubled. It's not. The monastery is peaceful, orderly, safe. But there's always an undercurrent of uncertainty. Disease can come, war can come, famine can come. Nothing in this world is permanent, nothing is guaranteed. Except, the psalm says, except God. God is refuge, God is strength. God endures. These thoughts accompany his copying, deepening his engagement with the text, making it more than just letters to be formed, making it prayer, meditation, encounter. The afternoon advances. The light continues to change. Golden becomes orange. Orange begins to hint at red. The sun is approaching the western hills. Soon it will set. Soon Vespers will be called. Soon this day's work will end. Brother Thomas pushes on. He wants to finish this section of Psalm 46 before Vespers. Just a few more lines. Just a little more. His hand protests. His eyes burn slightly. But he continues, carefully, steadily, and then the bell rings. Vespers. The evening office. The day's work is done. Brother Thomas finishes the word he's writing, sets down his quill, blots the ink, closes his manuscript, arranges his desk. It's been a good day. A productive day. Perhaps 2 full pages completed. Maybe more, if you count the preparation and checking. This is good progress. Very good progress. He rises from his stool. His body is tired, sore. But it's the good kind of tired. The tiredness that comes from honest work, from a day well spent. He follows the other scribes down to the church for Vespers. The evening office awaits. And after that, a light supper. And after that, compline. And then, sleep. Tomorrow, It will all begin again. The bells will ring in the darkness. He'll rise, pray, warm his hands, return to the scriptorium, open his manuscript, pick up his quill. The church in the evening has a different quality than the church in the morning. In the morning it was dark, cold, a space of shadow and mystery. But now, at Vespers, the evening office, it's filled with the last light of day. The western windows glow with orange and gold. The setting sun, hidden behind the hills, sends up its light. The stone walls seem to absorb this light, to hold it, to glow with it. Brother Thomas enters and takes his place in the choir stalls. Around him, the other monks are gathering. They look tired. It's been a long day for all of them. Matins before dawn. Lauds, prime, terce, sext, none. And now Vespers. 7 of the 8 daily offices. Only Compline remains. The work has been done too. The scribes have copied their manuscripts. The cooks have prepared meals. The gardeners have tended the vegetables. The cellarer has managed the stores. The infirmarian has cared for the sick. The sacrist has maintained the church. Everyone has their role. Everyone has their work. And now, this moment of pause, this gathering together, this offering of prayer. The abbot begins. His voice is tired, but steady. Deus, in adjutorium mehum intende. O God, come to my assistance. The monks respond, Domine, ad adjuvandum me festina. O Lord, make haste to help me. The Psalms of Vespers begin. These are different from the morning psalms. The evening psalms have a particular character. They speak of endings, of completion, of rest, of God's protection through the coming night. Blessed are all they that fear the Lord. Brother Thomas joins his voice to the others. The chant fills the church, blends with the evening light, creates a moment that feels eternal, as if this exact moment has always existed, will always exist. He thinks about the day, about the work done, about the pages completed, about the letters formed. Each one a tiny act of devotion, each one an offering. He thinks about tomorrow, about the work that waits, about Psalm 46, half finished, about the pages still to be copied, about the months of work still ahead before this Psalter is complete. But mostly, he simply rests in this moment, in the sound of chanting, in the glow of evening light, in the fellowship of brothers joined in prayer. Vespers is perhaps the most beautiful of the offices, not because the text is different, not because the chanting is better, but because of the time, the transition from day to night, the threshold between activity and rest. There's something poignant about it, something that touches the heart. The office ends. The monks file out. The church is dimmer now. The last light is fading from the windows. The eastern sky, visible through the opposite windows, is already dark. Stars are beginning to appear. They proceed to the refectory for the evening meal. This is a lighter meal than the midday dinner, just bread and cheese. Perhaps an apple, if the season allows. The October apples from the monastery's orchard are just being harvested. They're small and tart, not the large sweet apples of later cultivation, but good nonetheless. Crisp, refreshing. Brother Thomas eats his bread, his cheese, his apple, drinks his ale. The reader at the lectern is finishing Augustine's Confessions, reading about Augustine's baptism, his joy, his gratitude, his new life. The meal is brief, perhaps 15 minutes, and then the monks are free until compline. This is the last hour before sleep. Some brothers use it for private prayer, some for reading, some simply for rest. Brother Thomas returns to his cell, his small, simple cell. He lights a rushlight, a poor thing, giving off more smoke than light, but enough to see by. He sits on his bed, just sits, letting his body rest, letting his mind quiet. The cell is dark except for the flickering rushlight. Through his small window he can see stars, countless stars. The October night is clear and cold. He thinks about the manuscript, about the psalter he's creating, about the merchant in London who will someday own it. Will that man appreciate it? Will he understand the hours of work, the care, the devotion? Brother Thomas realizes it doesn't matter. Appreciation is nice, but it's not required. The work is the work. The offering is the offering. Whether or not it's valued by others, that's not his concern. He offers a simple prayer. Thanks for the day, for health, for work, for the community of brothers, for bread and shelter and purpose. He prays for the merchant too, the unknown man who will receive this book. May it serve him well. May it draw him closer to God. May it comfort him in sorrow and guide him in joy. Then he simply sits in silence, in stillness. The rushlight flickers, the stars shine, the night deepens, the bell for compline rings, the final office, the last prayer of the day. Brother Thomas rises, makes his way to the church one last time. The church is dark now, only a few candles burning near the altar. Their light is small, insufficient, creating more shadow than illumination. The monks gather in the darkness, stand before their places in the choir stalls. This is the shortest office, perhaps 10 minutes. Just 3 psalms, brief prayers, a blessing. But there's something special about compline, something intimate. The darkness, the small gathering, the end of the day, the beginning of the great silence. The abbot leads the psalms. His voice seems softer now, more gentle, as if he too is tired, as if he too is ready for sleep. In te, Domine, speravi non confundar in aeternum. In thee, O Lord, have I hoped, let me never be confounded. In manus tuas, Domine, commendo spiritum meum. Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit. Words of trust, words of surrender, words of letting go. The office ends. The abbot gives the final blessing. Benedicat et custodiat nos omnipotens et misericors Dominus. May the Almighty and merciful Lord bless us and keep us. The monks respond, Amen. And then the great silence begins. No more speech until after prime tomorrow. The night is for silence, for rest, for the mysterious work that happens in sleep and darkness. The monks file out, return to their cells. Brother Thomas enters his cell, closes the door, removes his habit, hangs it on its hook. He lies down on his narrow bed. The straw mattress rustles beneath him. The wool blanket is rough but warm. The cell is cold. But the bed, with the blanket, is comfortable enough. He's tired, deeply tired. The kind of tired that comes from a full day of honest work. His hand aches, his back aches, his eyes ache. But it's good tiredness, satisfying tiredness. He closes his eyes, thinks briefly about tomorrow, about waking in the darkness, about the bell calling him to prayer, about returning to the scriptorium, about his manuscript waiting. But these thoughts fade quickly. Sleep rises like a tide, gentle, inexorable. Within minutes, Brother Thomas is asleep, deep sleep, the sleep of the just, the sleep of the weary, the sleep of one who has lived his day fully, who has offered his work, who has kept faith. Outside, the stars wheel overhead. The monastery settles into its nightly quiet. The buildings stand in darkness, silent, still. Inside, 30 monks sleep, each in his narrow bed, each wrapped in rough blankets, each dreaming whatever dreams come. And tomorrow, it will all begin again. The bells will ring, the monks will rise, the work will continue, the psalms will be prayed, the manuscripts will be copied, the meals will be prepared and eaten, the fields will be tended, the sick will be cared for. The same rhythm, day after day, week after week, year after year. This is the monastic life. This steady, quiet, repetitive life, this life of prayer and work and community. Not exciting, not dramatic, but beautiful in its way. Beautiful in its simplicity, in its faithfulness, in its patient continuation. Brother Thomas, sleeping in his cell, knows this, understands this, has chosen this. And when the bell rings tomorrow in the darkness, when his eyes open and his feet find the cold stone floor, he'll rise, he'll dress, he'll join his brothers in their silent procession to the church, and he'll give thanks for another day, another chance to offer his work, another opportunity to form letters, to copy words, to create beauty, letter by letter, word by word, line by line, page by page. This is the work, this is the life, this is the offering, and it continues, on and on, into the future, into the centuries, long after Brother Thomas is gone, long after St. Aelred's itself has crumbled into ruins. His work will remain. The manuscripts he created will survive. The words he copied so carefully will still be read. By people he'll never meet. In a world he can't imagine. Speaking languages he doesn't know. But still, his work will endure. His patient, careful, devoted work. This is the gift of the scribe. This is the power of patience. This is the promise of faithful work. And so Brother Thomas sleeps, peacefully, deeply, knowing that tomorrow he'll wake and continue the work, continue the offering, continue the life, as he has done today, as he'll do tomorrow, as he'll do for all his days, until at last his own days end, until his hands can no longer hold the quill, until his eyes can no longer see the letters. But until then, he continues, faithfully, patiently, lovingly, letter by letter, word by word, page by page. This is the life of a medieval scribe. And in its quiet way, it's beautiful. Rest now. Let the centuries fade away. Let the scratch of quill on parchment fade into silence. Let the bells stop ringing. Let the day end. Let sleep come. Rest, sleep. Dream of peaceful things. Dream of simpler times. Dream of work done well and days lived fully. Sleep, sleep, sleep.